Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. This week is the first tutorial in a three-part series that is all about gardening illustrations. So what you see on screen is exactly what we're going to be painting this week. We'll be using my paid Gouache Lovers Procreate brush set for all of the illustrations, and then we'll be using my mono marker brush from my Font Lovers brush set for the lettering, but feel free to use any brushes that you'd like. The color palette is free as always, and I'll leave a link in the video description to that free color palette and all the brushes that we'll use. I'm going to start by creating a brand new canvas that's 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels at 300 dpi. I work in the display P3 color profile, but if you're on an older iPad and don't have access to that, then the default sRGB color profile is perfectly fine. Okay, so in order to begin this illustration, we're first going to sketch everything out. We're going to position it where we want it to be, and then we'll start painting in all the different elements and finalizing our artwork. So I'm going to start by selecting black, so just double tap where the black is to get true black. And then in my Gouache Lovers brush set, I'm going to select the sketching pencil. The size of this is 4%, and we're just going to start drawing all of our elements, and then we'll resize them so we have an appropriate scale for everything, and then we will organize and begin painting. So I'm just going to start drawing all these elements on the same layer, and then we'll reposition them using our selection and move tools within Procreate. So I'm going to start with drawing the trowel first. You can draw this any way you'd like. I tend to make things a little cuter by rounding the edges of a lot of the artwork that I make. So this trowel is kind of a triangle shape, and then this handle is going to connect to this metal bar that connects to the actual trowel itself. And then I can always grab my eraser at any point in time and clean up any place so it can be really clear to me what I need to paint. I like zooming in and out quite a bit to make sure it's feeling the way that I want it to feel. And these are all being drawn from memory, but if that is not comfortable, then just grab a reference image and paint from that. So I want my rake to be a similar scale as this one, so I'm going to duplicate this layer and move this over here. I'm going to erase away the trowel part and then paint in the rake. I'm going to move this a little bit more where I would like it to go in this layout, and then I will merge these two layers together by pinching them, and we can continue drawing our other elements. The last tool that I want to draw is a pair of gardening shears. So these are like the old school kind just because they've got so much more character. So these ones are a little tricky to draw. What I do is I draw two parallel lines. I'm going to draw these at an angle and then do a half moon. And then we also need two handles that mirror these. So I'm going to draw two more parallel lines right here and another half moon, but these ones are going to be fatter and they're going to be thicker too. So I want to make sure I note that in my sketch. Okay, so now we need to connect these two together. So this is going to come down like this, and the same thing over here. These ones are going to go behind. I want this connection point to be curved because it's metal. So those are our shears. I can erase this little extra bit in here. And I want to make sure that this one still has thickness up here too. All right, so they're looking a little small compared to my other tools, so I'm going to just scale them up slightly. Okay, let's move on. The next big items I want to draw, I want to have a planter, big old pot to plant our seeds in. So the way that I usually do this, big oval, smaller oval, connect the two edges. I'm going to give it a detail right around the rim, and then we want to make sure that this looks like it's open right here. So I'm going to make sure you can tell that there's a lip right here. And I can erase away this guideline. I think I want this one to be just a little bit taller. Make this bigger, straighter. I'm also going to put a little one up here that you would use for like maybe herbs or something. I'm I'm going to give this one a few more details. So I'm going to give it, this top band will be a different color, and then I'm going to give it 2 smaller bands down here. And then we will carry around a lip again too. Okay, so that's a little tiny planter up here. And then we're going to add in a couple of smaller elements. I'm going to move this planter down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to make a seed packet. So this is just going to be a square. And then we're going to pretend like it's folded over the top because we saved them from like last year or last week maybe. And then we're going to put like a little clothespin right here. That's how my mom used to always close everything. Like even when we'd have bags of chips in our pantry, my mom wouldn't get like chip clips or anything. She'd use clothespins for everything. All right, and then we need to give this a label. I think that looks pretty good. So this is going to say seeds or whatever you want, and then we'll make it really cute by adding a little flourish. Okay, and then I want another one of these just like that, except I'm going to make this just slightly larger because it's so cute. I want everyone to be able to see it. So this element right here, I'm going to select it, and then down here I'm going to hit copy and paste. And now over here you can see from selection I've got a brand new layer with just that element on it, so I can deselect over here, and this top element is that copy and paste. So it's a really quick way to get a copy of something you just had. I'm going to make this just a little smaller. Okay, so the last couple of items that we're going to put in here, I'm going to move this too. This is what I do. I just fuss around a lot until it's just right, but you know, it just looks so much better when it's tweaked. Last couple of things that are going in here are just little labels that you would stake into your planters or the ground. So these ones are going to be really cute. They're going to be rectangular, and once again I'm going to have curved edges on my rectangles. And I'm going to inset the label and then give it the little stake that it needs to stand up. Okay, and this one will be like our basil. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the seed packet. I'm going to copy this. So select it and then hit copy and paste and then deselect. And up here, this top one, I can merge. Actually, let me merge my seed packet. And now this one can move over here. And we'll change the title of this one. Okay, I'm going to merge these 2 layers together now so everything's on the same layer. And I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes. I'll speed up the video so you don't have to sit through all of this. But I'm going to tweak the positions of everything just so it feels a little bit more comfortable now that I've got everything drawn in here. And don't be afraid to scale things up. Usually I say never ever do that because you're stretching pixels and things will get blurry, but this is a sketch layer. You are totally allowed to stretch things as much as you want on a sketch layer because it's not part of the final artwork. If you're going to stretch anything anywhere, this is the time to do it because once we start painting, that's going to become our final artwork. So that's why I get really nitpicky with the sketch layer because I know whatever is on the sketch layer, that's what's going to become the final art. So I'm going to spend a little bit just tweaking things, the positions, and the scale of the different things, and just making them feel really comfortable so it looks like they're set before we begin painting. Okay, so this is my little set of gardening tools or supplies, and now I'm going to position this so it's pretty centered on my canvas. And if you have uniform that's snapping toggled on, then you'll get those crosshairs so you'll know where the center of your canvas is. And because I know I'm going to add lettering to the very bottom to label this, I'm going to toggle this up just a little bit, and I'm actually going to reduce the size of this a little bit too, because I'm going to put a big circle around it, so I want to make sure that my circle isn't going to be gigantic. And if my elements are a little smaller, everything will be a little more comfortable. So I'm going to follow this line up just above center, so I've got enough space down here. So let's pop our background in that circle around everything. That way we can get an idea of positioning for our sketch layer before we start painting all of our little elements. So the background color for this one, if you tap on background color, it's going to be this very first one on the bottom row. And then for the circle, I'm going to create a brand new layer, drag it underneath our sketch layer. Actually, let me label this one sketch so everything stays organized now. And this one will be called circle. I'm going to grab my selection tool up here. I'm going to choose ellipse. I'm going to pull out an ellipse, and if you put your finger on the screen, it will snap to a circle. So now I have a circle, and even though it's not positioned where I want it to go, I have a circle, and that's the important part. And now I'm going to grab this lightest color, which is the second one on the bottom row, and I'm just going to drag it into there. And since it's on its own layer, now I can deselect it, and I can move it and position it right along that same line. So now I know that everything is aligned right there. So that's a pretty good size for my circle. And I still have room down here for my lettering. So I'm going to roll with this. I like the scale of everything. So now we can start painting. I'm going to create a brand new layer above the sketch layer. And let's start with our tools, our main tools first. So I'll start with exactly how I started with the sketch layer. We'll begin with our trowel, then we'll go to the rake, we'll do our shears, and then we'll take care of all of the rest. For the trowel, we're going to grab the lightest gray color right here. I'm going to come to the gouache lever set, and you could really use most of these brushes, could work for painting all these elements. It all depends on how much texture you would like in it. If you want a really streaky texture, grab the streaky. If you want it more rough, grab the diluted paint. For this one, I'm going to move around between a few of these, but I'm going to start with this thick, round, textured brush and just paint right in here. And I'm going to make sure that I keep my stylus on the screen the entire time, because with this brush, you're going to get extra layering of the paint. There's a subtle shadow on there, and it's really beautiful for some things, but for this, I want to make sure everything stays so it looks like it was painted at the exact same time. Okay, so the next detail, I'm going to create a brand new layer, grab the darker gray, paint in this steel bar, create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab my pink and paint my handle. I'm going to paint the vertical part of my handle first, and then on the exact same layer, I'm going to paint the crossbar, and you can see that overlapping of the paint, which is exactly the effect that I want right here. And if I toggle off my sketch layer, we can see how that looks. We can zoom out. It's a cute little trowel. So I'm not going to label these individual layers just for the sake of time, but I am going to keep them organized by grouping them. So now that I have my trowel complete, I can slide these over, hit group, and then label my group trowel. Okay, let's move on to the rake. Same exact process, create a brand new layer. We're going to grab the light gray, paint in the rake part. And then we're going to paint the handle, same color pink. Okay, let's label this group rake. And now let's move on to our shears. I'm going to turn the sketch layer back on, create a brand new layer. So for the shears, we will paint the backmost layer first, which is going to be this one. It's going to be the darker gray. So grab the darker gray. And then create a brand new layer. I'm going to turn that off just so I can see things better since we've got a lot of overlaps. I'm going to create a brand new layer, and I know I need the dark dot on top of the light one, and I need a light dot on top of the dark one. And now I can paint the handle, so create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab this dark blue. Okay, turn off our sketch layer, and I'm going to slide my handle underneath all of these elements. And I'm going to move these up just a little bit so there's a little more of an overlap here. I'm going to group these together, label them shears. All right, now that we have our tools complete, let's move on to our planters. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, this large green planter right here. We're going to do the base color first. So that's going to be this very first green color up at the top. So I'm going to paint this entire thing that color. And then create a brand new layer. Let's make sure this is shaped right. It's a little wonky over here. I can push it out by grabbing my blender brush, toggling this down, and just pushing the paint on the side. On this brand new layer, I'm going to turn off the visibility of the color block, turn my sketch layer back on, and I'm going to take care of that rim color, which is going to be the dark green color. And I'm going to leave a little space up at the top. Forgot to put that on my sketch layer. Okay, let's turn on the color block layer, turn off the sketch layer, and position this a little bit better here. Turn both of these off, create a brand new layer up at the top, turn the sketch layer back on, and the inside of the pot is going to have some dirt in it, so I'm going to grab this dark brown color and paint that in. All right, and now if we turn everything back on, turn off the sketch layer, we got a cute little planter right there. Okay, group this together, label this one large planter, create a brand new layer. Let's tackle the small one. For this one, it's basically the same process. The base color of this little planter is going to be this mustard color. Okay, turn that off, create a brand new layer. The next color is going to be pink, and this pink is going to be this entire rim area, so I can extend this beyond where that yellow went. I'll just make sure that I don't have any yellow poking through, and if I do, I can just erase it. I'm also going to do these two little detail bands down here in pink too. Actually, I'm going to switch to my liner brush for this because I like how it's got a subtle texture in it. Let's turn this on and make sure everything is fitting where it needs to go. So I'm just going to erase away my color block layer so everything fits the way it needs to. Now all I have to do is add the dirt. So I'm going to create a brand new layer right above the pink layer, turn these ones off, turn my sketch layer back on, and paint in the dirt. All right, last couple of things. I'm going to do the little labels next, and then we'll finish it off with our cute seed packets. So turn on the sketch layer. Let's group these layers together and label these ones small planter. Create a brand new layer. We're going to block out the color for this. And the color for these, the base color, the outline of it is going to be the same color as this large planter. So it's the very first green one up at the top. I'm going to continue using my liner brush for this since these are really small elements. Makes it a little bit easier to work with since it doesn't have the same intensity of the pressure settings as the other brush. Okay, create a brand new layer. I'm going to paint the label area pink. I'm going to turn the sketch layer off for this so I can be nice and tight to this green area. I'm going to smudge where these two meet since there's a gap right there. And now I'm going to add in the writing. So I'm going to grab my dark blue color and I'm still using the liner brush and label it. Okay, group this together. I'm just going to label this one basil. And now you could just duplicate this and then change out the lettering and re-angle it, but I'm going to draw them separately just so they look a little more interesting that way. So same exact process here. And I can group all these together, label this one time. And now we've got our seed packets. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, turn on my sketch layer, and the base of this seed packet is going to be this mustard color. I'm going to switch back to my thick round textured brush for this. Okay, I'm going to create a brand new layer, drag it underneath that color block layer, and change the color to this dark brown because this flap that's behind it, I want it to be darker in color so the viewer can tell that it's behind it. And now I'm going to create a brand new layer on top of this, and that's going to be the little clothespin. Brand new layer, I can put this right on top of it. I'm going to have it extend just a little bit further than the top so it does look like a clothespin. Actually looks a little too chunky. I'm going to switch to my liner brush for this since it's a smaller detail. But I am going to make sure that my little clothespin extends beyond the top of the packet. And now we can paint the label on. I can create the label right above this color block, and that label color is going to be pink. I'm going to stick with my liner brush. And now I will do my little lettering details. So create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab this dark blue color again, reduce my size down to like 2% for the liner brush, and freehand it in. If you go off like this, no problem, just reduce the size since we're on a new layer. Really easy to do. Make sure it fits perfectly in there. And now we can add in those little flourishes. I'm going to just replicate this for the sake of time. So group these together, call this seed packet, drag the layer to the left and choose duplicate. Let me turn on my sketch layer so I know where to position it. So I can just move it over here. And once again with Procreate, if you rotate too many times, it's also going to get blurry. So keep that in mind as well. All right, let's turn off our sketch layer. Everything should be all set now. And the last thing we want to do is just add in our lettering down at the bottom. If you don't want to add a phrase or any lettering right there, then you're already done. You can feel free to use typable text too. I'm going to use lettering. I'm going to grab my darkest green color. I'm going to switch into my Font Lovers Procreate brush set and grab my mono marker brush. I'm also going to turn on my drawing guides because I have a tendency to just naturally write uphill, and this helps keep me straight when I'm writing out whatever phrase I'm writing. So I'm going to go to Canvas, toggle on drawing guide, and I just leave it as the default because honestly all I need is just a baseline to keep my line straight. So let's create a brand new layer up at the very top and label this one lettering, and now we can letter it out. Okay, I'm going to center this up, center. I'm going to zoom out to make sure it's going to feel okay. Turn off my drawing guide. I'm going to reduce the size of it a little bit. So that's how to create a flat style gouache gardening tools illustration directly in Procreate. Once again, this is the very first video in my brand new 3-part gardening illustration series. So if you'd like to be notified of the next two, as soon as they go live, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon, and that way you'll get that notification as soon as they're available. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button. You can find more Procreate tutorials and freebies over on my site, every-tuesday.com. You can also find me over on Instagram. My handle is everytuesday. If you try this out and post it there, I would love it if you tag me. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.